Troy, that's your cue.
No. Oh, okay. I thought we were going to start. What's up, and welcome to the panel where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, we're discussing the comic excellence, an action fantasy series made by creators of color. So buckle up, get your wands at their ready, and prepare to fight for a better future on this episode of the panel. Hey everybody, welcome to the panel. You may have noticed I am not Anamia. She couldn't make this morning, so you're kind of stuck with me this episode. Sorry everybody. I am the consumer marketing digital content editor for Previews World. It's a mouthful. My name is Troy Jeffrey Allen. I've had a grease coma from pizza that I ate 2 hours ago, and I want to go to sleep, but I got a host, so let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Hanging out with me this time is President and CEO of HBCU Con, the geek, Shauna Lawson. What's up, Shauna?
Hello. Sorry, I look like I'm in a scene from Get Out, but I promise I'm happy to be here. There's nothing scary going on behind me.
We're looking a little dire back there. I was like, okay, what's going on here? This is a little bit like a Five Nights at Freddy's thing going on.
I know. I'm so used to doing Zoom during the day, like for work. You know what I mean? That I'm like, oh snap, my nighttime light is not doing what it's not giving what it needs to give. So I promise y'all next time it will be lit.
Also joining us this week is Afropunk's Ian Freeman. Am I saying that right? That's Sogio, right? Gamer segment? Okay.
Yep.
We're calling Ian too. What's up, Ian? How you doing?
I'm doing better than you two, it would seem. Easy like Sunday morning.
Got your anime background all ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Yeah, Black Lagoon.
The true weeb.
Thanks for joining me. Shauna, real quick, can you tell people a little bit about HBCU Con?
Well, sure. Thank you for asking. So HBCU Con is a community that we've built to celebrate and bridge the gap between historically Black colleges and universities and the geek community to create an authentic homecoming experience that we can call our own.
All right, cool. That was nice. She had it down to a science. That was nice.
Listen.
You've done this a couple of times, I see.
Yeah, quite a few.
Ian, I know you do stuff for Afropunk. Can you let people know about your podcast, your Twitch stream, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. So Afropunk, as many know, if you don't, wow. I don't do this as often as Shauna, as you can tell. It's exploring the alternative Black experience. And currently I am the producer for Afropunk's Twitch channel, where we have the Culture Code, which explores pop culture through a Black geek lens. And we have Attack on Trend, which is a fashion podcast hosted by cosplayers and stylist Thou Art Anuli and Sachi. And we're starting a new series called Alt Plus, which explores the alternative lifestyles through a Black lens, which will be hosted by Ashley Danger. And that should be starting up in the next week or two.
All right, awesome.
Nice.
So I'll be sure to give you all chances to plug your respective outlets towards the end. But you know what? Let's get into the plot for excellence, right? Mm-hmm. The topic of this episode. So Spencer Dales was born into the world of magic. His father belongs to the Aegis, a secret society of Black agents tasked with bettering the lives of others, with potential, but never themselves. Now it's time for Spencer to follow in his father's footsteps, but all he sees is a broken feet of someone with a wand and the will to change it. But who will stand beside him in his fight for a better future? Actually, can I just point out real quick? Read Aegis throughout the course of this book. I probably read it like three different ways. I've said Aegis. So I'm probably
the same way. It's like GIF versus GIF,
Right.
I didn't know. I guess Aegis was what I stuck with because it sounded It sounds like a euphemism for ageist. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
right,
Like,
right, right. I mean, that's actually fair because like there is definitely a generation gap in the story, which is actually
mhm.
um
I play a lot of Assassin's Creed, so Aegis was the first
uh
thing I knew, but that's
right,
really
yeah. Actually, you know what? As I said that, I was like, wait a minute, there's a video game that uses that term too, and it is you're absolutely right about that.
Mm.
So let's get initial thoughts real quick. Like, typically I got to be real with you guys. I don't like magic stuff. Like, it's kind of not. Constantine Hellblazer is probably as deep as I go with the magic stuff in general. And it's largely because of I don't know, magic sometimes feels like a fix-all. When depending on the story, it's kind of like, oh, throw some magic at it, the conflict's resolved. But they pulled a few tricks that kind of defied my inside excellence and made me eat my words. But I'm curious, individually, what were your initial thoughts before we get into the nitty gritty of excellence? And I will start, Sean.
Oh man. Well, reading the first page was already like, okay, we about to be in for a ride. Because it kind of explained the tenets of the Aegis and the whole agency. And of course, the one that stuck out to me most was that magic used by females is not allowed. So I thought that was very interesting. And I felt like there was going to be some kind of ploy into that later on in the book. So that was kind of my first impression. It was very father son centered.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Ian? What was your initial impression of the book itself?
the initial impression of the book. The initial impression was, yeah, I'm not like you. I'm not a huge fan of the magical genre. Yeah, the Hogwarts and stuff like that. Yeah,
Right.
but not.
Right.
I don't go down that well too far. The initial thing of what Shauna mentioned about the father-son dynamic, of course, really got me. I even think some of the language of like, give me a good father-son tale, and I'm in, resonated with me for the way because I'm Black, I have a father, and I have sons. I have a son and I have two grandsons. So it was definitely, there were echoes there that definitely grabbed me initially. But I will have to say throughout the story that meandered often. But that's my overall impression when I first read it.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So let's get started by first seeing the story. Let's dive in.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk first about the writer, the writer himself, Brandon Thomas. Brandon Thomas actually two Black Brandons in comics right now. Both of them are killing it in their respective avenues. I just want to point that out. But Brandon Thomas has been writing about comics since 2001 and writing them professionally since 2003. He has written comics for several publishers, including Marvel, Dynamite, and DC Entertainment. I would also point out he has one of the better milestone books right now and has published over 300 original columns. His first creator-owned project, The Many Adventures of Miranda Mercury, shipped from Archaea to widespread critical acclaim, leading to his comic, the sci-fi conspiracy thriller Horizon.
Nice.
So, all right, let's do it. What did you think about the story? You know what? I saw the no women allowed thing, and I thought about. I was like, oh, Shonda's not gonna. I was like, I wonder what Shonda's gonna react to this. I was like, how's she gonna react to this?
Flip a table. But I was on the airplane when I first read, so then I just flipped my tray table up.
Just made it pop back down, right?
Yeah. I do think overall the concept is very good. I like and to be fair, shout out to Fantastic Frankie, because Fantastic Frankie also did a review of this on her Instagram, and she provided a really good, what she said in terms of how it plays with the idea of what it would be like if magic were had a governance, and what it would look like if there were systemic oppression when it comes to magic. So I did very much appreciate that. I love the art. I think the art is A1. There was a scene where the grandmother Gigi, which is what we call my grandmother. So that was very much resonated with me. And she was cutting Spencer's hair, and like Frankie had mentioned that how everybody was talking about how fresh his lineup was, but the one thing that really stuck out to me was when she sprayed the oil sheen on his hair, and I could hear the sound of the oil sheen in my head. Like, you know, that sound, that's how you know you finally done, right? When you're in the salon or you're in the barber's chair, you hear that oil sheen, and then you're ready for your look, and you going on about your day, right? I do think that there are some like interesting different elements. I'm not sure how I want to like go and where I want to begin, quite frankly.
I mean, dance around spoilers, but definitely.
Okay. Yeah, but I feel like there was some aspects of it that I really enjoyed, mainly those, and then but there were also aspects of it that kind of made me raise an eyebrow, and I felt like it left something to be desired, at least for me. But I also try to take into account that this book wasn't necessarily written for me. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, there is a volume 2. I want to point that out, and then that's ultimately the conclusion of the series. What about you, Ian? What did you think of the story?
So the story, initially, I liked the story. I thought it was engaging at the beginning. I thought the family dynamics. I think the introduction was really great. Like I said, the family dynamics, the structure of the whole magical society, that foreshadowing with that building tension between the father and the son, even just like how they let you peek behind the curtain in certain essences of what the Aegis was, and kind of gave hints giving you hints as to how they oversaw people with magic and just what their status was in this hierarchy. Thought that was really great. Once it got past that, it became at times confusing. And I think it's because I don't know if it's the way it was put into a graphic novel, or if it was in comic form, it may have been easier. I don't know, but it's almost like the best way I could put it is, if you've ever seen a movie and they do a cut scene, and sometimes a cut scene just makes sense, and then sometimes when the cut scene takes you completely out of the moment. That's what I felt often with this, is that sometimes the way it was cut, sometimes like it would jump scenes, and it was like it would take me out of the scene, and I would have to literally like stop and then start reading it again to put myself back into it. But the story itself, I think, was compelling in the overall. I think there were some details or some nuances that I questioned, but overall, I think the story is a good one. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the story for what it was.
Now, so I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie The Prestige. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. It's got Michael Caine and Christian Bale and Jackman. That's also about magic, right?
Right.
And as I was watching it, they do a lot of misdirection in this book that reminded me of that quite a bit. And I think what they were trying to do, at least in the upfront, was like play around with time, maybe in the same way that they were trying to play around with time. Sometimes it confused me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But other times, like I kind of recognized that it was an approach, I guess is what I'm getting at. And if it's completely effective, that's up to the individual. I definitely got thrown around by it a couple of times, and I was like, wait, he's 15. Okay, wait, he's 19 now.
Yeah.
All right. So
it
that
bounced around quite a bit.
Yeah, that threw me for sure. Outside of that, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought that I'm a sucker for, like you guys were saying, you're a sucker for the father-son. I'm always a sucker for like an evil institution pretending to be altruistic. I always love stories like that. Like that's just RoboCop. That's like everything, right? And so I actually really like that because it kind of presents up front that they kind of tell you up front that the Aegis is not on the up and up. And then when
Right.
you really start to examine the rules of the organization, you're just sort of like, yeah, this is a little backwards. Like,
Yeah.
like women aren't allowed and they're allowed to perform magic. Like, how they pit certain individuals against each other.
Yeah.
Like, there's a really interesting bit about bonds that I actually wish that they had continued on with that story a little bit more because I was very intrigued by that. Like this idea that there are people that have been kicked from the organization and now they're kind of bootlegging like wands,
Yes.
like in the park, like you know what I mean, like like straight up, like do a bootleg like subway station, you know what I mean? And I found that really fascinating. And I kind of feel like that's going to factor in later because it's definitely one of those stories where it's all just a fact. They're setting up something down the line.
Right.
What character did you find the most interesting?
I mean, for me, of course, I love Gigi because my grandma's name is also Gigi, and I just liked her. And then I liked Monique, which wasn't, of course, she shows up a little later.
Yeah.
But I thought that I very much can appreciate Spencer's like angst, but he was a little bit all over the place for me. It's like, dude, calm down, He's giving ASMR for daddy issues right now. So that was kind of like my take on that. I did find it interesting that the person who had the power to take their magic away from them was known as the overseer. Who was white and hooded.
That's a very
like I was like, whoa, this is a euphemism. So I thought that was very interesting because when you first start reading it, it almost feels like it's like a magic Wakanda, right? Like it's Wizard World meets Wakanda, but then you start to see that there's like this white centered agenda or white supremacist agenda, if you will, where they're like sent on errands to save white people from themselves. and but they have to do it in obscurity. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you looked it up because that was the other thing I thought was kind of curious is there's two instances where I'm like, oh, so they don't like try to help the community. They just, they kind of like just help everybody, I guess, which I don't know, maybe it was like I don't know, maybe some sort of like my own personal mentality, but initially assumed that they were going to help Black communities exclusively, you know what I mean? And that's not what they did at all.
Right.
What about you, Ian? Like, what did you think? Who did you find what character did you find the most interesting?
The most interesting was definitely Monique and the dad for me.
Okay.
I think Monique because she added a factor that wasn't there present to the entire thing, and she's definitely an anomaly. So that definitely just piqued my interest. She also very much kind of harkened to that Wakanda thing, so that that definitely resonated with me. The dad, I found him really intriguing because he seems to be, to me, I think he's the most complex person in the book.
That's fair.
Because he seems to be, on one instance, you're like, okay, he's this hard ass that's just hard on his son. But then as the story unravels, you find that they give you glimpses of that, there's a reason why he was doing that. And it wasn't just, pride and family name. Yeah, that's part of it. But then there's also other factors involved.
Right.
And then as it gets to the later part, it just even opens up more. So I think the dad for me was really the most compelling character in the story.
Yeah, I can appreciate with Spencer and his dad, appreciate imperfect characters. And the dad is frustrating in a way that's compelling to the story. Spencer's also frustrating compelling to the story too. Like he's he isn't perfect, which I actually appreciate. I actually like characters like that. He's angry. He's kind of an ingrate, and I kind of love that at several points kind of point out like you didn't even have to work this hard. Like, you know,
right.
I hate
Aaron. Yeah.
I hate it, Spencer.
You said, well,
Absolutely.
I could see that. I
Time,
like.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
The entire time I was watching this, I felt like I was in. You ever watch that horror flick where the person that you want to die keeps living? You're like, yo, what happened? Why is the person dead yet? Every time I'm like, yo, please let there be someone else. Like, there's got to be someone else that we're supposed to be rooting for. Yeah. Someone off him real quick so we can get back to the real story. It just seemed like, to your point, Trey, it seemed like every way that it was to make something harder, he took.
Yeah, facts.
And one of the things that took me out of the story was his entire reasoning for going off was that his grandmother passed.
Right.
And he wanted to save her with magic. I'm like, how entitled can you be?
Yeah.
Like, that had nothing to do with anything. Now, it's a spoiler, so I won't get into it. But as you find in the story, there's other things at play. But he didn't know that. He was his entire reasoning for all of this was, I'm a brat. I want what I want. And the entire time, I'm just like, yo, get this Kardashian dude out of here.
Out of Kardashian.
Okay. No, I'm probably gonna actually read volume 2 on the way out of here when I get on the plane after this, and because I'm hoping this has like almost like a slap in the face moment, like, you know what I mean, where it's just sort of like, come on, dude, like a lot of this stuff is you just being emo primo, like, you know what I mean. For that reason, actually, if I had to say I liked a character, it would actually be Aaron, because Aaron's path throughout the story.
Killmonger.
Yes, he is such a Killmonger.
We're gonna.
I legit. That was.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was the first thing I thought of. He reminds me of Killmonger, and then later in the story, he reminds me of the Hotep from "Don't Be a Menace" in South Central, and y'all know why.
Oh wow. I know why, but I've never seen that movie. But okay.
What? Oh, well, at least Troy gets the joke. You'll get it in a minute.
But no, I think it's like we're gonna talk about in the artwork, because like that was something that definitely stuck out to me, is like the casting that happened.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, you know what was the strongest, before we move into that, what was the strongest aspect of the story for you individually? And I'll start with you, Shauna.
The strongest aspect? Oh gosh.
I didn't like the sound of that.
Do you want me to be nice, or do you want me to be honest?
be honest.
I thought it was very interesting that Aaron was like so gung-ho and like this almost kind of like Malcolm X in his narrative, like, yo, these white people got us out here doing their bidding. And then you flip the page and find out that he's got this jungle fever situation going on, and like is in jail because he fell in love with somebody who he was supposed to be, I guess, looking after.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fine. You know, I get it. It's cool. I thought it was interesting that they introduced that element so early in the story, where Monique was way later down the line. And I did find it a bit much that they had like that scene where they were butt ass naked in the and I'm like, is this really necessary? You know, like what kind of imagery, like what's the messaging that here, you know? And just really kind of felt void, that the story was void of Black love in a lot of ways. Like there was the mom, there was the grandmother, but that was essentially like kind of it, you know. Monique was there, but Monique kind of popped in just to help the father and his agenda, and that's the only extent that she can use her magic, is to help somebody else in his agenda, right? And I know that there's more books in this series, but a first impression is a lasting impression, and I thought that for it to be a story that was supposed to be centered around Blackness and the Black magic experience, if you will. I thought that was a little bit, it was a little disappointing, quite frankly, and I felt like it was kind of like you pandering, you know.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean, Shauna's going to come through with the come through. You know that's going to happen. You know? I like. I mean, it definitely crossed. I was surprised that Aaron's love interest was white for sure. And that was another one of those things. Like, okay, I just had to reframe my expectations of the book because I read the first 2 issues when it came out like a few years ago. And I said, and I bought the trade when it came out immediately, and I finally just read it this past week. And I think my impression of it versus what it actually is definitely had to shift because I had different expectations of it.
Right.
That said, I think that there are other elements that do indicate Black love. We'll get into that. But before we jump into that, what was the strongest aspect of the story for you?
The strongest aspect for me was I want to say it was the family. I think that everything that was done in the book centers around family. Whether it's the dad and the son's relationship, we're started down this path because of the son's relationship with the grandmother. Aaron and Spencer are basically brothers through this entire thing. And even when Monique gets brought in, she's acting as a surrogate big sister figure to Spencer. So there's the family unit and the story and the narrative of family, especially just in the Black community where we adopt cousins and whatever. That is the thing that I felt was told the greatest in this. And to what Troy was saying about the Black love thing, I think that there was love in all of those areas.
Right.
So it may have not just been that romantic love.
That's fair.
But there was love through, and that's why I said family was the big thing that stood out to me for this. I do have my things, and I guess we'll talk about those later. But to answer the question, it was definitely family.
Okay. I mean, and to your point, like he definitely opens up with like his favorite stories and those about fathers and sons. A really good line later on where he says something about blood. It was always about blood, but he's actually talking about actual blood. That's like definitely a metaphor at this point. Like what I mean. So, all right, let's get into the artwork. Art by Kari Randolph. So like. So I'm gonna tell y'all, I got roasted by Black Twitter.
Really?
Why Black Twitter roasting you?
For a few years back because I pronounced Kari's name incorrectly.
You said Kahari?
I said Kahari. Now here, I'm gonna defend myself real quick. I'm gonna defend myself very quickly, all right? Because I've known of him like for years now, even when I did that video, and I always said Kari Randolph, but I looked up on his Twitter just to make sure, and his Twitter account said Kari. I think it still says that actually. So I corrected myself, and then it got immortalized.
Wow!
It went out into the internet, and I got roasted. So I'm going to apologize right now. Kari Randolph is an American comic book artist. He has worked on such series as Starborn, Charismagic, Tech Jacket, Mosaic, and Excellent for publishers such as Marvel Comics, Epic Comics, DC Comics, Aspen Comics, Image Comics, and Boom Studios. So let's talk about the artwork, right? Did you like the art, first of all? And I'll start with you, Shauna.
I actually love it. It's some of the best artwork that I've seen. It really kept me captivated. It's funny because when I first started reading it, I was on a plane coming back from Atlanta, and it was a young lady sitting next to me who is an artist, and she's really, really talented, like really talented sculptor, drawer, you name it, she can do it. And she's in high school. And as I was flipping through the pages, she was like, "What are you reading?" You know, like she was really like into. She's like, "The artwork is really, really good." And then the guy sitting next to me was active duty military, and he was like on his way to Turkey or something like that. And then he was like into it. So then as I'm flipping the pages, I'm like literally giving the people next to me a play-by-play of each page because the artwork captivated them that much. And neither one of them were Black. So that just goes to show like how really beautiful art can kind of speak to everybody, even if it doesn't center that certain group. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Kari's art, and actually you might be able to back me up on this, Ian. Like it reminds me of Madhouse, like the animation studio in a lot of ways. And it also more specifically reminded me of Aeon Flux, like which I think it's if I remember correctly, as the director in that. Like it definitely just kind of harkened back to that in a lot of ways. And I always appreciated about him, like, notice too that Kari loves limbs and forced perspective. so for example, like, the leg is like, the legs and arms are always kind of emphasized. And I was going to mention, like, we were talking about Black Love earlier. I noticed, like, throughout the book, like, first of all, there's a cipher in the book. But part of that is that there seems to be Kenta patterns, like in a lot of the artwork, a lot of the clothing, et cetera, and I thought that in itself told a story, because that immediately implies that, like, okay, this isn't European Harry Potter magic, right?
Right.
Like Ghanaian African magic, you know what I mean? And I really appreciated that in terms of the artwork. But I'm sorry, Ian, what did you think of the artwork? And did you like it?
I love the artwork. If there was one thing that I gave top notch and had no qualms about, was the artwork. I've been a fan of his for a while, and it was, I guess it's ironic that one of his other books that he did artwork for, don't know if you've read Black.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because that was what would the world be with Black people who had all the superpowers, and this is what if Black people were all the magicians. So that was ironic. But no, Troy, you hit it right on the head. I think a lot of it is it's not an anime style, but it has those influences. Very Aeon Flux. And I really love the artwork. I love his attention to your point, detail, limbs. I love that. I also love how he emphasizes certain things. And if you really like deep dive into the artwork, like you were saying, just the patterns, the cipher, things like that, he's very intricate in what he does. And I just really love the artwork for this.
One bit that stood out to me was there's a point where he goes to visit his grandmother. Actually, Johnny threw it up on the screen earlier. There's a bit where he goes to visit his grandmother in the hospital. There it is, and he's grabbed one of the bootleg wands that we talked about earlier, right? And he's having a conversation with her, and they kind of explain early on that the wand have a limited amount of power within them, and it can break them really fast. And so he uses that wand to talk to his grandmother, and you can see like in each panel as her emotions shift back to being almost kind of like unresponsive, you can see the wand kind of whittle away. And I thought that was actually really great. And great storytelling in itself, great visual storytelling. I also want to point out that the colors, particularly there's a snow scene in one of the issues. Actually, it's when Monique really kind of shows up in the story. I thought the colors in that were really great as well. Do you guys think overall the story, do you think that this is the right tone for this type of story?
I love the art. I love the colors. I think that it provides just the right amount of contrast. Like, because he does shading really well, but sometimes people do shading and it's like so dark and you can't even see the details. But he does such a great job of combining like shading and like dark elements with vibrant, bright colors. I think it's just really well done. It really carried the book quite honest. I mean, not that the story isn't great, because it is, but I think that the artwork really like made this book like top notch in that sense.
Do you think Ian, the art supports the story?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think it does it in a way to what both of you were saying was that it his use of color, his use of contrast, um, for example, just like what's on screen with there is this all of the I'll say it this way. One of the biggest things about magic, it's kind of like with martial arts, it's the movement is super important in magic because you have to have the right, we don't know it's like the right flick of the wrist is the way that you cast the right spell.
Right.
And so that attention to detail, the attention to the length of the arm, the length of the leg, how the wand is positioned, what that just making sure that you get not only that rigidness that art does, but also you can see the fluidity in his art style. Adds to the concept of magic and reinforces it. So throughout every page, you get to see that fluidity that lies with it, and so I think that makes it really believable. It keeps you in that. It keeps you in that mindset of that this is not just a regular magical power This is not just like a superpower thing. This is magic, and so I think it definitely helps reinforce that.
Absolutely. Actually, so okay, we talked a little bit about casting, right? There's at least two people in this story that made me go, okay, I know who that actor is. definitely as Michael B. Jordan, right? And I swore, and I could be wrong because I was trying to look this up wrong and I couldn't find it. I swore that Michael B. Jordan picked this story up and adapted it into a movie. I think, but I could be wrong about that.
Would not be surprised.
Yeah. But like,
I hope not after Genlock.
Oh wow, that is shade. I wish I had a fan right now.
Wait, was he adapting Genlock?
He did. No, he was one of the producers for Genlock when they did it on. They did an anime of it.
Rooster Teeth, was it that one?
Yeah, I think it
was it Rooster Teeth? I forgot who did it. All I know it's bad. It started out great. Because shorty that plays in Game of Thrones, that's the girl that kills everybody.
Khaleesi or Arya?
Arya. Not gets killed, kills people. Arya. She voices one of the characters in it. And yeah, I'm going off through it. But yeah, no Michael B. Jordan touching cartoon stuff.
Yo. It's Naruto. Did you see that meme? Where they had Megan Thee Stallion.
More evidence.
Because he said it was Naruto.
More evidence.
She's
Stick
like,
with the boxing, bro. Love what you do. Leave our stuff alone, sir.
They probably wasn't even talking about anime, but it's a picture and she's going like this, and then they made a meme out of it, like it's pronounced Naruto. Like poor Michael.
But yeah, back to your point. Sorry about that. So Michael B. Jordan, yes, absolutely.
We're here for the nerdy talk too. It's all good. The nerdy asides.
I will say, did you see? Maybe it's me, and this is where I thought you were going with it. There's a character in there that looks drop dead like Anthony Anderson.
Okay.
Is it the guy who the prison guard? Okay, so I cannot remember this guy's name now. He was in Bullet Train, and I cannot remember his name right now. But I can see why you would say Anthony Anderson.
Oh, yes, that guy too. I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the
one that all the commercials he's sitting across from Brad Pitt.
Right. And I cannot remember his name. I'm going to look up his name right now just so I can get it right. But yeah, like he's Lemon. That's right. Brian Tyree Henry. Like he reminded me of that when I first saw him. I was like, okay, I know exactly who this actor is.
The first time I saw him when he came across, I was like, look, Anthony, how did they get Anthony Anderson in this?
Yeah, I can see Anthony Anderson too. That's totally fair. All right, real quick, any particular moment when the art really stood out? I guess we kind of already covered that in a way, right?
Yeah, the barbershop one for sure. Like you said, I loved when Monique stepped on the scene. I love her makeup and her hair. The attention to, he's really good with like black hairstyles. I think he does that really well. He also does really good of like showing bruises, like when Aaron and Spence beat each other up.
No, yeah, you're in the
They like
hospital.
showed all. Yeah. He's really good with that type of stuff too.
Okay, all right. Was there anything else you wanted to point out real quick, Ian, or you?
Nah, I think I think I said so much about it earlier. But yeah.
All right, let's get into final thoughts then. All right, so overall, final thoughts. I'm actually gonna throw my. I thought it was actually they had a lot of really imaginative moments where they utilized magic in the story, which I was really impressed with. I'm speculating somebody, I don't know who, and I don't want to spoil this, so I'm not gonna delve too much into this, but somebody isn't related to someone, or someone had an affair or something. That's where I'm going.
That's what you calling?
That's what I'm calling. That's what I'm calling. I'm going to read volume 2 tonight, so I'm curious. Outside of that, I would say the only real criticism, and maybe this is because I work in marketing, so I think about these things a little bit more. I wish there, and like about cursing, but I wish there wasn't so much cursing, because I feel like this book is kind of like perfect for like a younger audience in a lot of ways. And there's just a lot of F-bombs and S-bombs.
And N-bombs too.
Yeah, I was about to say, and uses of the N-word, like, which is just sort of like, oh, interesting. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that would be my main criticism and I mean, the book has done fine. Like, it's not like it didn't bomb. It's been a success for Image and Kari and Brandon.
Right.
But at the same time, it's one of those things I thought about. So I was like, oh, that's kind of too bad. Like, it would have been cool to like give this to like a 6-year-old. Like, you know what I mean? So, my final thoughts. What about you two? What do you think, Shauna? What are your final thoughts? Would you recommend this?
I mean, it depends on who I'm talking to, honestly. I do agree that I wish it wasn't as profane, because I think that like a middle or high school student would really enjoy this. But college kids will probably like it too. Again, I love the overall elements of integrating systemic oppression and just institutionalization of magic, and how they have this concept of only the most deserving. And that's so subjective, right? And like, who deserves this magical stuff, and how they were talking about how people were getting their stuff taken away for like petty reasons. So I really appreciated that. I think that if you are, the kind of guy who thinks that Black girls don't like you because you watch anime, then you'll probably enjoy this book. I
don't know if that's shady or.
If you just want to see, Black women as a cameo, you'll probably enjoy this book. At least this is issue 1. I'm only saying issue 1, not the whole series. But yeah, it was definitely given that, ASMR for daddy issues type. But yeah, I would definitely say that there's enough in this to captivate me to want to know what happens next. I want to know how the story builds, and I'm hopeful that it will, like you said, because I think Ian, you made really good points about how complex the father's character is in particular. And I just want to see how it kind of like the world building and how things wrap up, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. And overall thoughts, final thoughts.
Would I recommend this? Yes. Would I strongly recommend it? Depending on what you've read before. Like I said, if you've read Black, if you've read stuff like that, then yes, absolutely. Again, people have different cups of tea. I guess the biggest thing for me is the pluses. The artwork's amazing. The overall storyline, I think is really great. I love them using magic as a different thing, because there is a lot. It's usually like the superpower thing. So I'm glad that magic was a different route to take. So I liked that. My biggest and this is ironic, I'm gonna use the word, but I didn't like the magical Negro trope that was in it.
Mm.
Which is to what Shauna was talking about, and you yourself, Troy, mentioned that the whole Black people saving white people thing. Not that, and again, it may be something that is more expressed overall. I did find it interesting that the second one with Nicole, I understood completely. The first one was actually Aaron portraying the guy, because it was a text. So the first white person they said was actually Aaron, just in magical whatever,
right?
Disguised magically. But the fact that it was to be a white person makes you kind of in the mindset, oh, okay, these are the people that they have to save all the time. So that may change in later issues, later volumes. So if that's the case, then great. But in this initial, that was the thing that stood out for me. But other than that, I think everything was really good. And so yeah, I would recommend it.
Okay. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that Spencer is going to get his ish together, right? by the end of volume 2, and I think that we're going to learn that. You really gave me something to think about, Shauna, because now that I'm thinking about it, the Overseer, yeah, that's a very interesting depiction. And I think that this is the type of book where that's by accident.
No, I think it's very intentional. Yeah,
it's very intentional now, and like I didn't pick up on that on my initial read. So yeah, I'm gonna give Brendan Thomas and Kari the benefit of the doubt and say, all right, I think that all these things are going to kind of come together at the end in the final volume.
True.
Let's get into some suggested reading, right? I don't know if you guys have anything that you think you would recommend to other people who would be interested in this book, or someone who's read this and they're like, okay, I like this, or even something that's just also by Black creators. Any recommendations, Shauna?
Well, honestly, reading this, it reminded me of like Doctor Strange a little bit. So I feel like if you like Doctor Strange, you'll like this book. Of course, I would recommend Tuskegee Heirs. Of course, I would recommend Fight of the Century. Of course, I would recommend like Ice Queen. I think is really good. Those are some ones that I think that folks would really like. Like if you like this, then you'll love those particular works, because they really are like works of art, and they're good storytelling too. Regine Sawyer, Greg Burnham, and yourself, Troy. I think you did a very good job of telling a story.
All right, cool. Shout out. I don't have to do it now. What about you, Ian? Anything that you would recommend or suggest for someone who's read this?
2 right off the top of my head. One I mentioned already, which is Black, which Kari did the artwork on. I think I can't remember the person's exact name. I think his name was Kwanzaa, and I forgot his last name. Yeah. Okay. So I think that was a great book. The other one would be Genius, which is Mark Bernardin and Afua Richardson.
Yes, Afua.
Yeah, did the artwork for. And I literally have that. I have the collection in each issue, and I have the graphic novels for them. One of my favorite books. Every time I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, I need a book." I'm like, read this one. So those are 2 that reading this will definitely, I think, work well in that sense. So yeah.
All right. I'm going to say, and I've recommended this book actually on our weekly show too. Anita Hawes' blog. It's also another Image title. It's by Rodney Barnes, a spinoff from Philadelphia. So it's like it's in the Philadelphia universe, but it's a spinoff from. I actually enjoyed this more than Philadelphia. Actually, these Philadelphia seemed was a little bit more vampire centered, which is fine. But Anita Hawes is a bit more just like the supernatural. And I love it because she's a paranormal investigator, and I think that the book is kind of a little bit darker than Excellence. Excellence feels a little bit more upbeat. So Anita Hawes' Nightmare book is a bit more, definitely moodier. And so if you've read Philadelphia, then you probably know what I mean. But yeah, she's up against demons and all this other stuff. And I just love it because she has a blog about like her findings, and like some people believe it, some people don't. Some people because of her blog, some people discredit her because of her blog, and I would definitely recommend that.
Okay, duly noted. And I gotta correct myself. Regine's it's Ice Witch. I don't know why I keep saying Ice Queen when I mean to say Ice Witch.
All good. All right, so this is a reminder. Excellent at your friendly local comic shop. You can find a comic shop near you. Simply head on over to comicshoplocator.com. Let's get into some plugs. We talked a little about HBCU Con. We talked about Afropunk's Twitch and podcast. But just can you real quick tell people where they can find you? So Shauna, you go ahead and go first.
Sure. Of course, you can go to our website, www.hbcucon.org. We are also pretty much on almost every platform at HBCU Con, C-O-N, with the exception of YouTube and Twitch. It's the official HBCU Con.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about you? Where can people find you?
Cool. Like I said, I'm work for Afropunk. It's at Afropunk across everywhere. And if for the actual shows that I produce on Twitch, it's Twitch/Afropunk. So yeah.
All right, cool. And you guys, of course, can find me here on a weekly basis, talking comics, nerd things, yelling at the internet. And sometimes the internet yells back on people's whole week. So be sure to hang out with me there. If you have a graphic novel that you'd like for us to talk about, leave a comment below, and your choice could be picked for a future episode. Here's a reminder to follow us on Previews World, right? Of course, that popped up on screen, and Free Comic Book Day on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, all the things, right? And you know what? Mia closes out with this, and she does it, and it's super adorable. It's not going to be as adorable when it's coming from me. Hey, heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless. We'll see you next time.
Oh, that's adorable.
Do you have a suggestion for a graphic novel that you'd like to see discussed on the panel? Leave us a comment and your choice could be picked for a future episode.